Hi, this is Katie Weeks, your independent, close to my heart maker, and today I am presenting a Pinterest layout challenge with the Myscrappylife Lucky You virtual crop. And I am taking my Pinterest challenge from a layout from Kelly Baxter Fitzgerald. And if you don't follow her, you are missing out. She does some beautiful work and she has some great workshops. So I contacted her and asked her about using her layout as an inspiration, and she was very gracious and even gave me a few tips. So I am going to be using the Daisy paper pack, and I'm going to use the Clover cardstock as my base. I'm going to use some white cardstock and flamingo cardstock, and then I've picked out these prints, the floral print that's on the white. I love the gingham and then that little daisy print. And so I am going to start by cutting a 10 by 10 inch square. So I'm just slicing off 2 inches from one side and then 2 inches from the other. And I'm using that as a diagonal piece. Are you surprised it's a triangle? I have used triangles on all of these virtual crop layouts for the last 3 months. And I can just barely fit it in there, but I think I can do this 10-inch square on the diagonal in my paper trimmer. I'm lining up the corners and the tracks, and yeah, I pretty much did it. I just need to trim the one tiny little end. And so I'm going to use that diagonal on each page. And then the gingham needs to also be a 10-inch square. So I'm going to 2.5 inches because I still have my zip strip on that side. And then 2 inches here I'm cutting off, and I have another 10-inch diagonal. And the next thing I'm going to do is gut this so that I have the opposite side as one of my layers too. So I figured I just kind of conserve some paper. So I'm going to use 3/4 of an inch from the edge, and I'm going to cut 3/4 of an inch down to 9 1/4. And I do that on all 3 sides. So I go over to 3/4 of an inch on the right hand side, and then I cut down 3/4 of an inch down to 9 1/4. And I do that 4 times. And then I get my 8.5 inch frame or square, and I have my 10-inch frame. And it's real easy just to cut that on the diagonal. It's like mitering corners. It's so easy. And then I have those two, and then I cut this 8.5 inch square in my paper trimmer. And I just love these dainty little daisies on this print. And that's 8.5 inches, as you can see. Okay, so the next layer that I'm going to do, let me see. I have my flamingo cardstock. I think I want to do the light side of the flamingo, but I'm going to use the dark side too. So I'm going to trim this flamingo cardstock down to 7 3/4 for my square. And then I'm going to gut it so that the inside square is 4 3/4. So in order to do that, we'll come back to that one. Actually, next I'm going to cut that pink floral print. And I think I cut it as a 8 1/8 inch pink floral print. Yeah, and I want to put just once I get that down, then I can see what I want here. So I'm going to cut this 1.5 inches is going to be the thickness of the frame all the way around. So in order to do that, I go 1.5 down to 6 1/4, and then 1.5 down to 6 1/4, 4 times around. Then I can cut this 4 3/4 inch square on the diagonal, and I'm going to use the dark flamingo for the smallest triangle. And then I'm cutting this bigger one on the diagonal and flipping it over and using that lighter side. Yeah, I think I really like the layers in this arrangement. So the next thing I'm going to do is get these layers and start sticking them all down. I love, love, love the T-square ruler. It works out perfectly. So I lined it up at 1 inch all the way across. And then I used it down that 11-inch mark on the right to line up that gingham one. I would say this one is the hardest one to line up, especially since it's just a frame and not a full triangle. And then I just layered in the different triangles, and it was pretty quick and easy to line those up, and I just mostly eyeballed it, to be honest with you. I like to put a little bit of adhesive down on my mat when I put my base page down, because then it keeps everything from shifting, and I can very easily use that to keep my paper square, and then I can use my T ruler to line things up with the squared up paper. So here I'm just making the same thing, just a mirror image of that same design with all of the triangles. So Kelly actually sells some workshops that are absolutely adorable. Snips by Kelly, I think, is her blog. If you look for Kelly Baxter Fitzgerald, I think you'll be able to find her. Okay, so next I'm going to embellish, and I kind of looked to see where she had her titles and tried to take a little bit of inspiration from some of the things that she did. And I debated about putting a flamingo strip across here, and then I was like, no, I think I want something different. So I took that off and I kept playing and looking through my papers, and I really like that paper with the stripes on it. So I thought, well, if I could get stripes to go all the way across, that would be perfect. So I cut off stripes, and then I realized that I couldn't line up the stripes to have an exact duplication of the way those stripes lined it, and I really wanted it to line up. And so then I'm like, maybe I will make the stripes go up and down. So I cut this strip at 3/4 of an inch, and I did 2 of them, and it didn't really matter where the stripes ended because it was such a random layout of stripes. And I liked that better because I wanted it to look cohesive across the 2 pages, regardless of which way the stripes went. And then I got my sticker sheet, and at the top and at the bottom was this cute little design that was green and white, clover actually, and white. And I really liked that. So I lined that up on the striped strip of paper going all the way across. And the next thing I was trying to figure out was the title, and I really like that Happy Life. I'm just kind of punching out the centers to some of those stickers, and I got it all off, and I laid it down on my layout, and it had that white shadow around it, which was nice, but I still wanted it to pop off the page a little more. So I was just debating on what to do. And so I just kind of laid that title aside, and I dug through my liquid pearls, and I was trying to decide if I wanted to use the ballerina or the sage. And the ballerina looked nice, but the way that I wanted to use it, I didn't think it would work as well. So I decided to go with the sage, and I brought in just a tiny piece of that all-purpose mat, and I had a workshop this week that was all about liquid pearls, and I went through several techniques. So I was debating on using some of those liquid pearl techniques. So on my all-purpose mat, I just made a puddle of those sage liquid pearls, and then I started spreading it on my white daisy cardstock. And I think I'm actually going to spread it quite a ways, and you'd be surprised at how fast it spreads so easily. I kept it mostly on the white daisy. There might have been a little bit that went off onto that Clover cardstock, but I just kind of kept rubbing it, and it's a pretty thin layer actually, but I just kept rubbing it, and I wanted it to be big enough that it would basically be underneath most of that title. That's the goal for how wide and how deep I want to put this liquid pearls. And then once I get that spread out, I of course need to let it dry, which patience probably is not one of my better qualities. But I'm doing my best to let it dry while I work on some other parts of this layout. Okay, so the next thing I think I'll do is bring in some of my scrap pieces and make some photo mats. So there's a large daisy print on one side, and then there's a smaller, more dainty daisy print on the other side. And I'm cutting these down so they are 6 1/4 by 4 1/4 and 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. So I did 2 spots that were 6 1/4 by 4 1/4, and I did 3 spots that are 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. I get those all trimmed down, and then I'm going to bring in some of my photo placeholders, because you put these photo mats down and it can be very deceiving on a layout because so much of them get covered up by our photos. And so I wanted to see what it would look like with a photo placeholder over top to get an idea of how much would actually show. So I bring these in and decide which ones I wanted to go with. And I actually like the really dainty daisies. I couldn't decide how floral I wanted this layout to be, but I like the dainty daisies the best, I think. And the other daisies that I add will be mostly the embellishments for the stickers. So that's what I went with, and I stuck down all of my photo placeholders. When I put the strip across the bottom, I made sure not to add adhesive where it would be laid over those photo spots. That way, when I print my photos, I can kind of tuck those down in underneath that strip, and it'll fit on there just right. So now I think I'm finally able to go in and decorate everything. I think my liquid pearls have dried enough, and I can put on my Happy Life title, and then I can start building some of my clusters around my page, which is always the fun part. So I get out my sticker sheet and I just start trying to decide what I'm going to use and where I'm going to use it. Some people take these stickers off and they use their anti-static pouch, and I think I go get mine in a few minutes, but that just basically removes the sticky from the back so you don't have to have a bunch on your fingers like I've got right here. And you can kind of dry fit them and figure out the best placement, and then put your own adhesive down to hold them in place. But I'm just going around and playing and kind of layering them and figuring out what order I want all of them to be on my page. So I hope you are enjoying this Pinterest challenge. The real thing that you need to do is find something on your Pinterest board, or you can use a similar sketch to what I used here from Kelly Baxter Fitzgerald, and try to make it with your own paper. I I think this Daisy Daisy was just like one of the absolute cutest ones that we've had for a while. You see, there's my anti-static pouch. So that's what I decided to use. So I used that anti-static pouch on the bike so that I could still slide a picture down like I was showing you right there with that cardstock. I can still slide something underneath it because there's no adhesive behind the bike seat or the handles and that little flower basket. It'll be just perfect to slide something underneath. So I love all of the banners on this sticker sheet, but they just didn't really speak to me for this particular layout. So I put some little hearts trailing off behind the bike. I think I layered a few flowers at the bottom, and then I'm going to look and see where I want my other clusters. I have the one cluster up by my title where it's Happy Life, and I still love that watering can. And I think, you know, the watering can just about has to be surrounded by flowers because I'm using it to water my flowers, right? So I'm going to layer up a few of these flowers, and then the watering can and the tiniest flowers, I'm going to come in with some of my 3D dots and pop them up just a little to give it some dimension. So you can either use your own Pinterest thing that you have on your Pinterest board, or you can use this one and get a fun paper pack that you really like and go around and try to duplicate it. Whether it's this one or another one, do your own layout based on a Pinterest layout. And I don't know if you have some favorite people that you follow and on Pinterest and pin their layouts. Definitely Kelly is one of my favorites. I love to see what she makes. I've purchased several of her workshops and I have a blast every time I put them together. So I will try to leave a link to her blog in the description below so that you can find some of the things that she's created. Okay, so I'm going to come in now with Card Front Stencil Pack 2, and I have a little design, and this was another one of my liquid pearl techniques from my class the other night. I'm taking a stencil and a spatula and my Ballerina liquid pearls, and I'm just putting some little marks in 3 different places. So I think that bike is just adorable, but I cannot go with black tread on my pretty layout. So I went with a little pink mark that looks like tire tread to me, and I think it's kind of cute. So I did it in the top right and left corner of the layout, and then I needed it to be in a 3rd place, you know, the whole rule of 3s and things like that. And I was trying to decide where I wanted it, and I kind of wanted it more centered, and I'm like, you know what, I think I'm just going to bring my 2 layouts together and I will just put it right there between the 2 layouts. Why not, right? So that's what I did. So I brought my stencil back in, put it across both layouts, and put my tread marks right there. And I thought this was a really cute tire tread mark, but yet girly because it's ballerina. And I really like that, and I thought I was finished. And then I'm like, I like the pink on it, but I think it needs some other pink. Like that still, it just still didn't feel quite complete to me. I'm like, I still need a little something else. So I decided to do not around the whole layouts, but just in a few spots. I just did little polka dots around the outside edges in a few different places. And this is to me like the most relaxing, fun thing to add to a layout. It's like doodling, which I love to do, only it's doodling with liquid pearls. So it's shimmery and shiny and just a lot of fun. So I came and I put on my liquid pearls on the left side, and then I did it on the on the right side a few places, and then I did it some more on the left. I could hardly stop. I thought I was going to end up doing it around the whole thing at one point just because it was so much fun. But that's pretty much how I finished mine off. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you have enjoyed this, please consider giving me a thumbs up for the video. If you would like to join our virtual crop this weekend, it still goes through tomorrow. Just give me a message and I'll see if I can get you invited into the group. It's over on Facebook under Myscrappylife, and it's just a fun virtual crop that we do once a month with Miranda Weber. So if you would like to subscribe to my channel, just hit that red subscribe button below and then click on that bell and turn on all the notifications so that you find out every time I upload another crafty video. Also, feel free to share this with your crafty friends, and I hope you have a great day.